Thursday. So, closed beta ends. We all had a chance to play it a bunch. Beta shut down this morning. Final thoughts on the experience. We look back on it from start to finish, even our own experiences. And comparing it to other betas that you may or may not have been a part of. Tyler, starting with you, how would you assess the closed beta experience for Valorant?
It was so fun, and we wrote about this in our roundtable article where we kind of all went over our experiences in the beta. But I think on a personal level, I would give the game like a 9.5 or a 9. Anytime you have a game where it feels necessary, like I felt needed to like go play at least 1 or 2 games a day, even if it was like after a long work day. Did a bunch of interviews, wrote an article or two. I still felt the need to play a game or two just so I can keep my senses. I wanted to keep continuing my grind and getting better at the game as it went along. Obviously, there's some holes in the game. We'll get into that later. If it should be released so soon, if they should wait a few more months to get it perfectly right and have all the regions launch with the game. But I had a blast with the game. Solo queue, not as much as playing with friends and you guys, but there's. In terms of beta and just of like 3 million active players around the world, stream numbers were great. They kind of simmered down by the end, but still, top 5, top 10 on Twitch every single day. I think if you're the Riot development team who made this game, you're ecstatic. It's a great foundation to build off of, but you cannot rest on your laurels. If this is the game that Valorant is a year from now, this game is not going to be a tier 1 esport. It's not going to be a mega hit. It will be a tier 3. It'll be a hell of a niche community, but it's not going to be one of the big games in the world. But it's a great foundation to build off of it. And if they can build from this, it can be that tier 1 esport. It can be that mega hit that I think a lot of people think it has the potential to be.
Yeah, I think there's 2 different things. My personal experience, which was really fun when I played with people I knew. So I pretty much, after my first few solo experiences, only played with people I knew. But then I think from a beta standpoint, this is, and again, like I'm measuring success in hype and like the fact that we have a show for something that doesn't even have an esports scene technically, right? Like I think the amount of hype generated by the way Riot handled this from the alpha bootcamp, where they sent out invitations to the beta launch itself, to iterating on that through stream drops. It was just really smart and calculated about how they wanted to use people to advertise this game for them in a really genuine way, right? Like they made sure that people could test the product pretty much as they wanted, and then made it so that you have to watch streams in order to like get into the closed beta to feel like part of this kind of burgeoning community for a new game. Like I think everything, like I don't know if this is probably, this might be sounding like too cynical to people. It's not. It's like I think it's smart. I think everything they did around this release is just incredibly smart. And now, to Tyler's point, it depends on how they're going to further that within the first year, especially since they have said that they're not going to have as heavy hand in building the esports scene as you might have seen, Blizzard be with Overwatch or something like that. So, but I think in general, as a beta for a game, this is the most successful one that I can remember. And maybe I will say I do have an inherent bias because I follow a lot of people who are already in esports. But it's definitely the one that I've seen talked about and discussed and like shared the most.
Yeah, so I think that by the end of the beta period, like I felt like I had done a little bit of it all. Like I'm looking forward to more game content. I think the game content that was in the beta was fantastic, right? Like it didn't feel half baked. It felt like it was a full pie, not like some filling, right? So I think in that case, like it was what they put in there was as Tyler said, a very good foundation for what will ultimately be sort of iterated on and what new versions will come out over the next couple of years as they continue to service it as they have with League of Legends. So props to them on that. But I will say, like, I played a lot of it, and by the end of it, I certainly kind of got a little bored because it was just a lack of content, right? Like, only so many agents and only so many maps you can play, only so many situations you can get into and, like, try something new. And, like, oh, you know, I'm sure you can critique me for playing thousands of hours of League of Legends, which is more or less the same thing. But nonetheless, like, their league has so much depth that has come over time, though, right? Like, I was around in early League of Legends days, and, like, yeah, League of Legends lacked a lot of depth early on too. It was a new genre. That was the different. Like, it was no MOBAs were around, but not to the same extent they were when League and Dota 2 came out. So that said, good on them for not putting out something that was totally half-assed into beta. I felt like they did a good job on that. Putting my business hat on, to Emily's point, I think that with partnering with influencers in the way that they did was actually really impressive. And this is something I talked about early on in the beta. Like, everyone that participated in the alpha with Tyler and some of our other colleagues, like, they weren't paid to be there. Like, Ninja wasn't paid to show up, right? Like, and overall, right, like, that's a huge deal because we've seen where, like, Apex Legends, a game I still, like, homer for as a player because I love it, although it's not worth my time covering as an esport right now. Nonetheless, like, Apex like dumped millions of dollars. We see what Crucible is doing right now, where the game is like, and we were kind of laughing at it and getting set up for this. Like, they were dumping Amazon's dumping all this money onto people's plates to play it and engage with it, but like no one cares because the game's not good.
Can I ask really quickly? Have any of you played much of Crucible?
I played a little bit of it.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it.
There's no chat system, which is like
bad.
That's bad. I know. I understand the reasoning, right? Like, toxicity, and we've talked about this on this podcast, especially, is that toxicity in Valorant in a lot of these games is terrible. So, you know, if you cut out the middleman and you have to do a ping system that is supposed to help, right? But not even having a chat system, you can't even text your teammates. And Crucible's not even beta, and that's the worst part about it. If this was a beta for Crucible, that, you know, some sins can be forgiven, but this is a full release. So
you can make fun of Riot all you want for taking like almost 10 years to put out another title, right? Like, if we count TFT as their first title after League of Legends, right? Because it is a perceivably like very different game. Like, you can mock them all you want, but at least they're not EA and Amazon Game Studios.
Well, listen, this is the most amount of time that any major platform has given to Crucible.
But like the point being, right? Like, you look at Anthem, you look at Crucible, like these games like came out and they were like full releases and they were crud, right? Like, they're like half baked, like they don't feel very fleshed out. Like,
that's a conversation for another day,
sure.
Right? Like just the idea of
My point being is that like Riot got organically got influencers into the door without having to pay them millions of dollars to do it. A lot of them went on to actually really like the game. Right, like there are some that like tuned out and zoned out, but there are a lot that just stuck around. And overall, like the game itself was ready for that. Like, it wasn't an unfair expectation that these influencers are going to come on. Now the real question is, like, can Riot sustain this through the life cycle of this game?
One last point on this is that, to Jacob's point, is that these people still really like the game. And I think the thing is, Valorant isn't a good streaming game. And the current iteration of Valorant it's not the best streaming game. Like, even Counter-Strike.
Neither is Counter-Strike, yeah.
Yeah, Counter-Strike pops off when tournaments happen, right? Like, millions will tune in for tournaments, but like a general stream, unless you're one of the top players with a very big fan base, you're not going to pop off on a stream because it's a very slow, methodical game a lot of times. So for Ninja to keep playing this game, even though like it's not the best viewing experience, and
that says something.
You can't. If Riot had dumped money into forcing people to stream this game, it would have had. I don't think it would have had the natural growth that it did, and the kind of the love that these players had for this game. Right? If you force them to stream a game where their viewership's going to tune out, it kind of weeds out the people that are looking just for the money, right? Like, Ninja doesn't need the money, so he's going to stream whatever game he likes. He really enjoys the grind to get better and to become a Valorant ranked player, which we could talk about coming up about how that silly title is finally being changed. But
You can't be Valorant in Valorant anymore.
yeah, the thing of Crucible, and the last point on this is that sure they had the biggest names playing the game, but it just didn't work. And you can't force people to enjoy your game no matter how much you pay them. You can't force them to fake reacting and to ignore chat. If you're a big streamer and you're streaming to 20,000 people, they can see if a game is bad, and they can see if you're faking being happy and thinking the game's fun. So kudos on Valorant, a very good beta, very good foundation, but if it wants to be a kingpin in esports and is just a general gaming title, it needs to improve on a lot of factors and grow from this foundation.
Well, listen.